ברוכים הבאים לכולם מירושלים. The new episode of Israelities Podcast, live from Jerusalem.
Shalom lekulam from Jerusalem, Stefano here, and we are ready for a new episode of Israelities Podcast. Today we have a special guest, Pastor Trey. Thank you so much for coming.
Great to be here.
How many times you have been to Israel already?
40 or 50 times over the year.
Wow. Why so many times?
Well, I came the first time in 2008 because a member of my congregation in Texas gave me the gift of joining a tour. And I had, of course, studied the Bible and loved the Bible, but got to see it in person and came here in 2008. My dad came with me. He was my roommate for the trip, and we had a wonderful experience. I took 4,000 pictures while I was here because I didn't know if I'd ever get to come back, and my life was changed after that.
What is the best memory of that trip, if you remember? 2008, you said, right?
2008. The best memory is standing next to my dad and praying at the Kotel.
Oh, wow. Did you have any interest about Israel before 2008?
Well, of course, I'm a student of the news and politics, and of course, a student of the Bible. So yes, I had a great interest in it. I just never been here in person.
Wow. Tell us a bit more about your past, how, your time with God, your relationship with God. How was Pastor Trey as a kid?
As a kid, well, I grew up in Texas.
Okay.
And I became a follower of Yeshua at the age of 13.
Oh, quite early, yeah.
At a youth retreat put on by our church. And I felt at the age of 15 that God had called me to preach. So our youth pastor of the church, there was a number of us teenagers who felt called to ministry, and he would provide opportunities for us. So I started preaching when I was 15 years old. And soon after that, God sent me on what I thought was a detour, but it turned out to be His plan. I went into the Army, the American Army, and spent a total of 13 years between active duty and reserve in the United States Army. And then I became a pastor in Texas after that. And our church home at First Melissa is a great partner with King of Kings and a great supporter of Israel. And so my military life and my ministry life are both parts of who I am, but they are what God has used to prepare me for this day.
And how do you fit that politics and news in this journey? It was like before, during the military service, is after, is a passion of yours, or what is?
Yes, I like to learn. I like to study.
Okay.
But also, for the last about 16 years, I've hosted a talk radio show in Texas.
Okay.
So it's what the world calls a podcast today.
Okay.
This was before the podcast existed. This is regular old FM radio. And so I hosted a talk radio show we're coming up on 900 episodes of that radio show. And so it's a chance to talk with newsmakers, leaders, politicians, authors, thinkers, and so we focus on American politics and Israeli politics.
Oh, okay. So that's where probably we need to delve a little bit more into. Nowadays, we are talking about two wars happening in the Middle East, right? One is on the ground, which Israel seems is pretty much winning that part, and then there is the media war that we are dramatically losing all over. Wherever you turn, there's very little people pro-Israel or in favor of Israel. Are you experiencing the same with your radio show, with your life in Texas, or you have a different pictures there?
Well, our radio show is focused on providing the truth about Israel to the people in Texas. And our ministries at our church are the same thing, to tell the truth about what's happening politically and spiritually in the news and the military of Israel, to bring that to the people in America. And so are we seeing pushback personally? No. But do we know what's going on in America? Yes. And that's why there needs to be more voices like yours, like this one, telling the true story. Israel's not perfect. The country's not. The government's not. But it is a moral country. It is a moral army. And the IDF is doing exceedingly moral things. The IDF does more to protect innocent civilians than maybe any army ever. And that's why the accusation of genocide is false.
Yeah, but what's your understanding of the terminology also, genocide? What is a genocide?
Well, genocide, you have to talk to the lawyers because that is a real legal term.
Okay.
But the way most people interpret it is you're trying to kill off a whole group of people.
Okay.
You're trying to remove a subgroup of people from living.
Okay.
And Israel is accused of committing a genocide in Gaza. Now, it's not true factually because when you talk to the people who've studied the history of urban warfare, they will tell you that historically, the number of civilian casualties per combatant casualty, okay, it's a ratio.
Yeah.
How many so-called innocent civilians versus bad guys, combatants, are killed in urban warfare settings? The average over history is 9 to 1. 9 civilian deaths per 1 combatant death. The best that they found is 4 to 1. What Israel has conducted in Gaza is 1 to 1. So Israel is 9 times more careful protecting innocent civilians against combatant deaths than any other army in any other urban warfare context. And that is happening while Hamas uses civilians as human shields. So they are not trying to protect their own civilians. They're using their civilians to protect their terrorists. And when you talk about the billions of dollars of aid that came to Gaza, and they used it to buy concrete, and they used concrete to do what? To build tunnels. Guess what they did not build? Bomb shelters.
Yeah.
How many bomb shelters were built by Hamas since they took control of Gaza 20 years ago?
I guess 0.
0.
Okay.
So the morality of the IDF, you know these things, but maybe your audience needs to know.
Exactly. Yeah.
The dropping of leaflets, millions of pieces of paper dropped out of the sky. Bombs that don't have explosives. It's called knocking on the door, where they will drop a bomb and it will hit a rooftop, but it's not explosive. And that signals, we're going to bomb this building. You need to get out. Text messages. Billions of text messages have been sent by the IDF to the residents of Gaza saying, we believe there are terrorists in this neighborhood or in this building. We're coming to attack. You need to get out. And one question people may ask is, well, how do they know the phone numbers of all the people in Gaza? It's because the Israeli intelligence services are incredible. And what does the Hamas do when the warning comes? They say, don't listen to the lying Zionists. And they make their civilians stay there, sometimes by gunpoint, and that's when the civilian casualties occur.
But again, what is a Zionist? So what is the biblical meaning of be a Zionist? And how it became a political terminology?
Well, the anti-Israel world in today's politics, that's the negative term they call Israel, the Zionists.
Yeah.
Now, what does the term really mean? Well, Zion is a biblical name. You know that. It's another name for Jerusalem. So a Zionist is someone who loves Israel. A Zionist is someone who believes Israel has a right to this land, the people of Israel to the land of Israel, because God made a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yeah. And Zionism is the movement of the Jewish people to return to their homeland.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the narrative that we read on newspapers or in TV, the news that we see are like saying different stuff, right? They are saying Israel is bombing a hospital, the ambulance, we kill journalists, and we kill kids and babies and so on and so forth. And there are pictures that they are trying to prove these narratives. But as you have already explained, off camera, and that's why I'm asking you to also to put on camera. What's your understanding on that? Why the main newspapers and the main titles is always about like big letter, big capital letter, Israel is bombing hospital without even checking if the news is true or not, and it happens like 5 minutes later, you already know the number of people that have been killed by that attack.
Right. You're describing what the major news organizations around the world are guilty of, and that is an anti-Israel bias, an anti-Semitic bias. And that's why this is a kinetic war, a military war, but this is also a spiritual war.
Okay, good point.
It's a public relations war, it's a media war, but this is a spiritual war.
Mm-hmm.
And in the spiritual warfare, the darkness is fighting against the light. And if Israel represents God and the Bible, then the sides who reject God and the Bible will reject Israel. Mm-hmm. Or vice versa. If you reject Israel, then you're rejecting God and the Bible. Mm-hmm. And so you're talking about these headlines that are proudly announced across the media world in newspapers and on television programs, television news, and they try to show photographs of starving children. Mm-hmm. And then they have to come back later and admit that that was a child from Syria, or that was a child from Iraq, or that was a photograph from 10 years ago, or what you're seeing a lot of is AI-generated photographs. Mm-hmm. So starving children held in the arms of their parents, and when they research it and the photographic experts study it, they find out that is an AI-generated photo. It's not real. Now let's say some truth on the other side.
Yeah.
Have children died in Gaza? Yes. Have so-called innocent adults, civilians, died in Gaza over the last 22 months of war? Yes. And it's a tragedy. Whenever an innocent civilian dies in combat, it's a tragedy. But whose fault is that? Who started this war? October 7th, 2023 happened because Hamas, a barbaric, murderous terrorist group, sent thousands of terrorists across the border for the purpose of killing, raping, beheading, and taking hostages. Mm-hmm. And this war is happening because Hamas will not release the hostages and will not agree or promise to never do October 7th again. Mm-hmm. The most horrific thing in the history of the modern state of Israel, the worst killing of Jews since the Holocaust, was October 7th of 2023.
Correct.
What will be worse than that is when the next October 7th happens. And that is what Hamas wants to do. It's what they're planning to do. And the world asks, why does this war not end? Because Hamas will not release the hostages and commit to disarming and agreeing to not threaten Israel as part of their reason to exist.
Have you visited in this last trip some of the kibbutzim that have been affected by October 7th and being attacked?
I have visited the kibbutzim. Now, I hope your audience knows what that word means. It's a village, it's a town in the periphery, the border areas of Israel. There's a lot of kibbutzim and along the Gaza border that's called the Gaza envelope. And I visited one specifically this past week and visited with residents there. Now, there were, in this town that I visited, 900 residents prior to October 7th.
Oh.
There are no people living there now because there's no services there. It's safe. It was a closed military zone, but it's open for people to move back if they want. But there's no medical clinic, and there's no school for their children, and there's no supermarket. So they can live there, but they're not. So they're living in what Israelis call caravans. Americans call them trailers, but they're living in mobile home areas right now, waiting for their village to be rebuilt. And so I visited a number of homes that are still full of bullet holes, full of shrapnel, an RPG, a rocket-propelled grenade, blowing out the walls. And that specific village, kibbutz, that I visited, Many of their residents were murdered on October 7th, and many others were taken hostage. Some are still being held hostage.
Yeah. So did you have any conversation with some of them? Did you have any feedback of people that experienced that?
It was, of course, a nightmare.
Okay.
And you and I hearing the story 2 years later, as horrific as the stories are, we'll never relate to what they went through. It was Simchat Torah. It was a Shabbat. As you know, it was Saturday morning here in Israel, and the attack occurred at 6:30 in the morning when most everyone is asleep on a Shabbat. And in the Gaza envelope, in villages like this, for over 20 years, they're used to rocket fire. And so it's sad to say they thought this was just a normal day of rocket fire, like anyone should live normally with rocket fire. But that's what they thought it was at the beginning. Mm-hmm. But then they heard yelling and screaming in Arabic, and they heard machine gun fire. And that's when they knew it was different. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a rocket sent from a kilometer or two away. It was people in their own front yards breaking into houses, setting houses on fire, using maps with planned routes. Each of these villages have what's called an armory where the weapons are stored for their security forces. They knew where the weapons were stored, so they attacked that building first. They knew who the members of the security team were. They attacked those homes first. It was well planned. It had been long planned, and it was strategic, and the terrorists were given guidebooks, cheat sheets. They don't speak Hebrew, most of them. Mm-hmm. So you know, you're a linguist, you speak multiple languages. What transliteration is, it tells you how to say a phrase in another language even if you don't know what you're saying. Mm-hmm. It was transliterated into Hebrew, telling people what to do, telling women what to do. And I'm not going to get any more specific than that. But they were given commands. They were given instruction books. This was a well-planned, evil operation.
Well, what's your emotions going there, and how your spirit felt?
My spirit felt heartbroken for them.
Yeah.
So many reasons. On October the 7th and the 8th and the 9th and the 10th, the world stood by Israel because they said how horrible this was. And very quickly, that support faded away. Because Israel being attacked, oh no, we're sorry for you, Israel. Israel going on offense to counterattack those who murdered and raped and took hostages, the world didn't support Israel. And it's sad about any tragedy. If it's a hurricane, if it's a typhoon, if it's an earthquake, the media and the society focuses on that tragedy for a short time, and then it fades into the background because something new comes. Now, it's not in the background in Israel, but it is in the rest of the world, including in America. And that's one of the things I try to do at our church and on our radio shows is to keep this story alive because it's not over yet.
Yeah. In one of the statistics I read last week, it was reported that there are other wars happening around the world, and by the number of people that are dying in this Middle East, Israel-Gaza war is number 7. So that means there are other 6 wars around the world that people don't speak about. Are you familiar about this statistic?
I agree with your analysis, and you have to then ask why. Why does the world not care about what happens in Rwanda or in Sudan or even in Syria, which is just north of Israel? Why does the world not care? And the answer, sadly, is because it doesn't involve painting Israel in a negative light. And when Israel can be painted negatively in the wrong, that they are the aggressor, that they are the occupier, that they are trying to commit genocide, if any story can be turned in that way, the media will cover it. Usually incorrectly, but they will cover it. But if it's a conflict between 2 other groups or 2 other nations and there's no link to Israel, the news media will say it just doesn't matter to us. It's not important enough for us to report on.
So now, how can we give some tools to our viewers and followers how to properly be informed of the situation happening here in the Middle East of the war. Because, I mean, me and you have been talking a lot about that. So something happens, and on the first page or whatever newspaper it comes, Israel has done this and this. But then you have more information about the news, and then you need to do something else and write another article. But the article that proves that Israel is not so guilty goes smaller and smaller.
And it's on the back page.
And it's on the back page.
Yes.
And nobody reads that.
Yes.
So how can we really safeguard our heart, our mind, our spirit in the way we read news? Because there are two extremes. Those that says, I will not even switch on the television or buy a newspaper or read anything, which is impossible today with social media. Or is like Israel is always right. How can we find a balance for our
Good
view?
questions. Let's start with Israel is not always right. Let's be honest. This is a modern country with modern politicians and a modern army, and they are not perfect. They are not always right.
Which government is?
Yes, yes.
Are you happy with the U.S.? Always right?
The U.S. is not always right.
Exactly.
So no country is.
Yes, yeah.
So don't be naive. Israel is not always right. But as I mentioned before, Israel is a moral government and a moral army. So one of the things you need to do is to learn the lingo. You need to learn the terminology. Mm-hmm. For example, river to the sea. What does that mean? It's chanted all over Europe. It's chanted all over the United States. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. It's catchy. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a cute slogan. So people join in and say it. But what does it mean? What river? The Jordan River. What sea? The Mediterranean Sea. What is between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea? Israel. So when you say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, what are you saying? That Israel no longer exists. Mm-hmm. That is a call to genocide, to use the word we discussed earlier. So it's a catchy slogan, but it's a call to murder. It's a call to genocide. And if you don't know the terminology, you're going to be lost in that conversation. Yeah. Who is Hamas? What is Hamas? What is jihad? What is Iran? What was Iran's goals? Who was Hezbollah? You need to learn the names of the groups. You need to learn the names of the players in the story. Mm-hmm. Also, you need to go into reading an article with some basic knowledge. Israel attacks hospital trying to kill multiple children. That's what the headline might say. Okay. It's not true on its face, because would Israel attack a hospital? No, comma, unless Hamas has turned the hospital into a terrorist haven. And the hospitals that have been attacked in the Gaza Strip have been searched and discovered thousands and thousands of weapons being held there. We talked about ambulances. Mm-hmm. It's a principle of war. You don't attack an ambulance. Yeah. Well, Hamas knows that. So they transport terrorists in ambulances. Israel's trying to kill children. No, it's not. There is no one who cares more about the safety of children than this country. The leaders of Hamas over the years, we're talking the last 20 years, the leaders of Hamas would stand up in public and scream, "Death to Israel, kill all the Jews," mm-hmm. while privately and secretly asking for permission for their own children and grandchildren to be treated in Israeli hospitals. They would be allowed to come in and have world-class medical treatment in Israeli hospitals, probably for free, while their granddad or father stands up and says, "Kill all the Jews, kill all the Israelis," and their family members are getting medical care in Israeli hospitals. Mm. Why? Because Israel cares about life. One of the things that people may not understand in a sad sentence, in a normal terrorist attack, mm-hmm. not October 7th, it was just a horrible sentence. Yeah. In a normal terrorist attack, the medical professionals in Israel have been taught to treat the most injured person first. It's a medical principle.
Yeah.
Those who are most injured get the most treatment. In a suicide bombing, who is going to be the most injured person?
The terrorist.
The terrorist. So it is a proven fact that they will apply the principle, and the terrorists will get medical treatment. Now, there'll be multiple people getting treatment at the same time, but even the terrorists would get medical care because it is a value of life. So when you read headlines, ask questions. Is that true? What I know about Israel, is that true? Would they really do that? And for what reason would they do that? Israel lives with this negative media war, as we've been talking about. They're not trying to create more media problems for themselves. They'd love to have less media problems. So start with some logic first. Is this even logical?
Now, I of course I agree with this narrative. The rest of, I mean, the people that disagree with us on that are not just like people that go to work 9 to 5 in the morning and in the afternoon they go back, and like I would consider like normal people, okay? But these are like politicians, they are actors, they are artists, singers. There are people that usually have a huge voice, and they have been raising money for Gaza and like millions of dollars, US dollars. So why they don't going through the right narrative? Why don't they explore the news that they're reading? Why they are just throwing themselves like with this pro-Palestine and they go to the demonstration, and they go to television, they get interviewed, and at the opening of their concert they just shout pro-Palestine on the show, the Palestine flag. Why? If it's so clear that the narrative we are discussing for the past 20 plus minutes is possible to open any newspaper or to do some deeper research and find out that about Israel, why not everybody does it? What is bias behind?
There's a couple of answers.
What's the lobby behind?
Right. One, it's, as we've said, a spiritual warfare.
Okay.
So if you are anti-God and anti-Bible, then you are anti
His people. Yeah.
and his land.
Yeah.
It starts there. Beyond that, the world finds themselves to be noble when they stand up for the oppressed, when they stand up for the victims. And so if the media has painted Israel as the oppressor and the Palestinians as the oppressed, then it's cool. It's noble in their eyes to stand with the oppressed. Now remember who started this war. A Palestinian Islamic jihadist terrorist group. But that's old news now, sadly. So it's popular. It touches on the heartstrings because you can throw up these photographs, again, which we've said are often false. But if the audience members don't know enough to argue against what they're being seen, it's almost a race or a competition in the Hollywood world, in that kind of world. How can I be more pro-Palestine? How can I be more pro accusation of genocide? It's a competition. And I'd like to say it pretty straight. Nobody in your audience should be learning about what's going on in the Middle East from anyone in Hollywood anyway. If they're a great actor or a great musician, then let them be great at what they do. That does not make them an expert in politics or military or in current events. That's not where you should be getting your news.
Yeah. They have huge influence, though.
They do.
Even in the Christian world.
Unfortunately, they do. And the audience members need to be more discerning.
Now, I agree with you, but there is also I wouldn't generalize and say the all Christian world against it, but there is a good part of the Christian world between the Catholics, the Orthodox, and also some Protestants that are not anti-God,
Right.
but they are anti-Israel.
Yes.
So
And that is a tragic result of misunderstanding covenant. It's anti-Semitism that has a historic strain in the Christian church, sadly and tragically. And it's also, again, I think what I mentioned, there's a desire to care about the oppressed or to care about those who are victims. And if the only victims you ever see and hear about are the victims in Gaza, that's going to pull on the heartstrings of people, and I understand that. Just don't forget why this war started. And understand that if Hamas would release the hostages today, the war would end today.
yeah, that's true. Now, let's move into more biblical or theological question about the war and about Israel defending themselves. Now, we read in the Bible, Yeshua saying, love your enemies or turn the other cheek. Would you apply these Bible verses to we need to love Hamas and then we shouldn't attack Hamas? That's what the Bible says. That's what Yeshua said about to do. Because that's what most of the Christian, even my family says, well, we need to love our enemies. That's what Yeshua taught us. Is he out of context regarding to the war?
I think that is out of context. I don't think any logical person would stand there and tell you, you should allow the terrorists to attack your family, and Jesus would want the terrorists to attack your family. I don't think that's logical. I don't think it's biblical. I don't think it's grounded in Scripture. Now, people want to separate the God of the Old Testament from the God of the New Testament. I don't separate them, and I don't think you do either.
No, I don't.
Okay? So the Bible talks a lot about just war theory. And the Bible talks about defending the innocent and standing up for the oppressed and being the protector. And if God is our protector, then sometimes he chooses human instruments to be part of that protection. So love your enemies and turn the other cheek, I don't think applies to a terrorist breaking into your house. I think God would call men, husbands, fathers, to stand up and fight for your family, to defend your family. Now, if this is a debate and an argument, if this is a social conversation, if this is gossip against you, that's a different kind of warfare. But when you're talking about barbaric terrorists, I do not think turn the other cheek is a biblical application of that situation.
Well, that's a great answer. Thank you so much, Pastor Trey. I wanted to ask you a last question, okay? It's about your connection with us, King of Kings. How far back we need to go for like the connection? How did it start? And how it has continued?
Yes. Well, I'm a friend of King of Kings. My family attends King of Kings when we are in Israel. And some of the members of King of Kings come to visit us. You've been invited to come and see us in Texas. And so we have a home away from home, whether it's here or there. Pastor Chad Holland is a good friend, and the Holland family is a good friend with our family. And my wife is connected to the women of the ministry here as well, including your wife.
Yes.
And so it's friendship, it's partnership, it is standing with the body of Messiah in the land, and it's our way to say we support your ministry and we thank God for what you're doing here.
Tell us more about the tours that you're organizing. Of course, now because of the war and COVID before, maybe it's been dormant for a while, but what's the plan for the future?
Well, there's something called King of Kings Tours, and if you go to the King of Kings website, you can find it. And for those who look to King of Kings as a spiritual lighthouse, as you guys stand up on a Sunday and read off all the countries around the world that watch you online, if those people from all those countries want to come and visit Israel and take a tour, then King of Kings Tours will be happy to help organize that. That means find you a tour guide, find you a bus and a bus driver, plan the itinerary, plan your hotels, plan your meals. People will want to include some special things maybe, and we'll do our best. Some groups want to come and do volunteer service. Now, I want to tell the folks in advance, the volunteers, you want to come in and do drywall. Well, that's beautiful, but if no one at King of Kings needs you to do drywall, then we can't do that. But some people want to come and do volunteer service, whether that's painting or organizing or working in the office or serving in the soup kitchen or all of these kinds of things. So we try to help people find ways to serve if they want. They can attend King of Kings services if they want. We can help them plan and schedule special guest speakers. We have contacts in the Israeli media and the Israeli military, the Israeli government. We can bring special guest speakers to come and help the audience get this education that we've been talking about today, because we don't want Christians from other countries to come to Israel and never meet Israelis.
Yes.
We want them to meet Israelis, to see what life is like here. And what I tell both the groups I lead from Texas and those who travel with King of Kings tours is, I want you to learn ancient Israel and modern Israel.
Yeah, that's great. And you also run 2 radio shows in U.S.
Correct.
We have a lot of people viewing or listening to our podcast from the U.S. So can you give more information about the names, how they can connect to those shows?
Easiest is just my website, treygraham.com.
Okay.
But we have a Monday through Friday teaching and preaching program that we call Faith Walk. Mm-hmm. And then we have a Sunday afternoon talk radio show. And that's what we've discussed, where we bring on politicians from Texas or the rest of America and across Israel, newsmakers, authors, and we try to teach and educate like we've done today. That's called Smart Talk. So you can find that information, treygraham.com.
Pastor Trey, thank you so much for your time today, and you have just bringing so many information that would be so important for our people, viewers, to listen to this podcast episode again, again, and again, and again. In fact, for all of you watching or listening to this podcast, feel free to forward it and to send the file and the link to your friends, because everybody should hear like the counter narrative, which I believe is more truthful than what we read or what we see in the television, on social media. So thank you so much for connecting with us. If you have any question, comment, complain, just write an email to us. We are very open, very flexible, and we want to hear your opinion also on this podcast. Pastor Trey, thank you so much again. Have a safe trip back to US, and may God bless you together with your family and your ministry.
Thank you for letting me be here.
Shalom from Jerusalem.